going to talk largely around the acronym SMART. And this may be something that you've come across and you've heard about. I think it's really useful. And I think it's useful in a number of different circumstances. I think it can be useful for KPIs, key performance indicators, whether you're using annual objectives because the nature of someone's job role means that you've kind of got these long-term goals, whether you're looking much more at kind of short-term or repeatable goals. All of these things, it doesn't matter what you're using and what you're calling your kind of goal, target, key performance indicators, objectives. The words you use can be specific to you, your business, your industry, how things are being done for you. But I think the kind of SMART acronym is really useful. And I'm going to talk you through what I mean by that and what it represents and why I think it's useful. So starting first with specific. So the S is specific. So whenever we're putting something down as a performance objective, we need to be specific about it. And that means not just the what, but the how. So let's take, for example, a sales target. So you can give somebody a sales target. And if we're not specific, we can say, well, it doesn't matter how you achieve that. That's what you've got to hit. You've got to sell that number. We don't care how. Or you can say, actually, as a business, how matters. That's about your brand. It's about setting those expectations. And I think one of the things that's crucial to talk about right at this point is very often when SMART objectives are talked about, they're talked about on the basis of you must write a sentence that has everything in it to make it a SMART objective. I'm not a believer in that. And I think that to be specific often needs a lot of detail. And that detail may actually be somewhere else. So you may have a brand Bible, for example, or an operations Bible, or you may have a wiki that explains everything that you expect your customers to expect, or you may have values within your organisation. Actually, that objective sits on those values and you expect that those values to be applied to every objective. Again, there's a number of ways that you can do it, but it doesn't have to be in that one sentence. But that one sentence should incorporate really what you want achieved and how, and making sure that actually your culture and your wider expectations of people means that they know that they draw on these different expectations when they're applying their objective. So that's your specific. And clearly, to be specific, it will encompass all of the other things I'm about to talk about, because obviously we need to be specific around kind of everything to do with what is expected of people. So next is our M, measurable. So we need to make sure that we know what's expected, how it's expected, and how we're going to measure it, and whether it can be measured in the way we want to. So again, let's take the example of a call centre and we say we want the phone answered within 3 rings. Can we measure that? Do we have the technology to measure it? If we don't, it's pointless. Don't put it in there. And measurement doesn't necessarily need to come down to that. It may be about how you deal with that phone call. It may be what the customer experience is on that phone call. It may be an objective around customer satisfaction of those phone calls. But these are all the different things you can think about. These are all the different things that could be used as measures. Really think about what you want to measure. Don't forget that what you measure is often what you get. So if you've been specific, you've told people what is expected, and you've told them how you'll measure it, that is what you'll get. So be careful what you measure, because it can lead to people focusing on the wrong thing. So really do make sure that you're keeping an eye on that you're reviewing it to make sure that what people are actually producing are what you intended from the objectives in the first place. The A then is achievable. Now, achievable is often debated. There are people that say you should have stretch objectives, that actually if something's achievable, that makes it easy, it makes it unmotivational. But equally, if it's not achievable, if you look at that and go, there's no way I can achieve that, that can be really demotivating as well. A good way of getting around this is to have 2 levels. So the reason that we talked in the last video about good performance and excellent performance is that we can have a objective, which is the core, what you should be achieving, that's your good. And then we should have an objective that is your stretch objective, your excellent. So what will you be doing if you're lifting from good to excellent, and what would that look like, and writing an objective around that. And that's a good way of dealing with different levels of achievable and what it means to different people. So it's something really worth thinking about. But achievable needs to think about the context people are in. So if I've been set an objective and I'm going to be measured against that objective, do I control whether or not it can be achieved? That's a big issue, because if I've been set an objective but actually that department over there controls half that work, we've got a bit of a problem here. We've got to work out then how we make that marry so that my contribution is measured, and that if that's then as an objective to me, is it also an objective to the other people that are involved in that? So achievable is really worth thinking about as a whole, and be cautious not to kind of dismiss it as, oh, that means it's easy. It doesn't. It's not about being easy. It's about, is it something that person can actually control, and actually with the resources and things that you're providing, can they actually achieve it? We then go on to the R. In some texts, the R is realistic, and some it's relevant. For me, realistic is too close to achievable, so I like relevant. Relevant is about both the individual and the business. If I've been set an objective, do I see the relevance of achieving this? Does it feel pointless? Does it feel like you've just asked me to do something because you needed something to measure? Or can I see the organisation's goal, and can I see how my objective fits into the overall achievement of the organisation? That's where relevance sits. And I think that's a really important one, particularly for motivation, because that what's the point is really demotivating. So I think relevant is really important, and that is really about getting the messages across of what is overall expected from the organisation, what's the organisation trying to achieve, and how do you, this individual over here, fit into that bigger picture. And I think that's a really important one for motivation, so don't forget that one. But again, it might not fit sort of into a sentence of an objective. That's more about your overall, your culture, your putting over to people what's expected of them and what the organisation is trying to achieve. And then the final one is T, time-bound. And this fits in a bit with the measurement, in that, in what time frame do I need to achieve this? And it may be that you have, say, key performance indicators, which is that every client query will be replied to within 4 hours. It's repeatable time-bound. Or it may be that actually within 3 months this project will be completed. But we need a deadline, we need a time, a date, because otherwise people can go, yeah, I'm doing it, I'm on the way to, yeah. Whereas you need something that says, at this point, has it been achieved? And if it hasn't, we can look back and say, well, why hasn't it been achieved? What's happened? What's gone wrong? But we need that focus of that time to make sure that we've got something that we can stop at and say, no, this is the point we take the measure. And that's where we need to think about the measurable and think about, is it realistic, what we're measuring, and the time that we're asking people to do this in.